Can you help me with a question about the functions of language according to Roman Jakobson? It asks us to identify the notable functions.
Let's go through the options together. What's the first one?
The first option is phatic and metalingual. Do you think these are notable functions of language according to Jakobson?
Yes, phatic and metalingual are indeed functions described by Jakobson. The phatic function relates to social interactions and keeping communication channels open, while the metalingual function is about discussing the language itself, such as clarifying meanings.
Got it. The next option is informative and indicative.
Informative and indicative are not functions specifically listed by Jakobson. The informative function is more closely related to the referential function, but indicative isn't a term used by Jakobson for language functions.
So, that one is incorrect. What about emotive and conative?
Yes, emotive and conative are also Jakobson's functions. The emotive function expresses the speaker's emotions, while the conative function is directed toward the receiver, often found in commands or requests.
Great. So emotive and conative are correct. The next option is referential and operational.
Referential is indeed a function identified by Jakobson, focusing on conveying information about the world. However, operational is not one of Jakobson's terms. The correct pair with referential would be something like contextual.
Understood. And the last option is inclusive and discriminative.
Inclusive and discriminative are not functions described by Jakobson. These terms don't align with his theory of language functions.
So, the correct combined options should be phatic and metalingual and emotive and conative. Let's see if one of the provided options matches this combination.
I need some help with a question about clitics. It asks us to choose the correct pairs from the options given. Can you help me out?
Let's go through each option together. What's the first one?
The first option is clitic is a bound word form that is prosodically dependent on a host. Is this correct?
Yes, that's correct. A clitic is indeed a bound word form that attaches to a host word for its pronunciation. It can't stand alone prosodically.
Got it. The next option is enclitic is a clitic that does not follow its host. Is this true?
No, that's incorrect. An enclitic is actually a clitic that follows its host. The statement contradicts the definition.
So, enclitic is incorrect. What about proclitic is a clitic that precedes its host?
This one is correct. A proclitic is a clitic that comes before its host word. For example, in the phrase I'm, the I is a proclitic.
Okay, so proclitic is correct. The next one is second position clitic is called Wackernagel clitic.
Yes, that's correct. A second position clitic, or Wackernagel clitic, is a clitic that appears in the second position within its clause or phrase. This term is named after the linguist Jacob Wackernagel.
Great, so that one is also correct. The last option is clitics are treated as nouns in language. Is this true?
No, that's incorrect. Clitics can be various parts of speech, including pronouns, prepositions, or articles, but they are not specifically treated as nouns.
So, the correct combined option should be clitic is a bound word form that is prosodically dependent on a host. Proclitic is a clitic that precedes its host, and second position clitic is called Wackernagel clitic.
Can you help me with a question about the design features of language proposed by Charles F. Hockett? It asks us to choose the correct pairs from the options given.
Let's go through each option together. What's the first one?
The first option is arbitrariness and prevarication. Are these design features proposed by Hockett?
Yes, both arbitrariness and prevarication are among Hockett's design features. Arbitrariness refers to the lack of inherent connection between linguistic signs and their meanings, while prevarication is the ability to use language to lie or deceive.
Got it. The next option is innateness and productivity. Are these correct?
Productivity is one of Hockett's design features, which refers to the capacity for novel utterances. However, innateness is not one of Hockett's features. It's more associated with Noam Chomsky's theory of language.
So, innateness is incorrect. What about competence and performance?
Competence and performance are concepts introduced by Chomsky, not Hockett. They refer to a speaker's knowledge of their language and the actual use of language in concrete situations, respectively.
Okay, so that one is also incorrect. The next option is duality of patterning and productivity.
Yes, both duality of patterning and productivity are design features proposed by Hockett. Duality of patterning refers to the way in which smaller, meaningless elements, like phonemes, combine to form larger, meaningful units, like words.
Great, so that one is correct. The last option is systematicity and functionality. Are these correct?
No, systematicity and functionality are not among Hockett's design features. They are more general linguistic concepts rather than specific features identified by Hockett.
So, the correct combined options should be arbitrariness and prevarication, and duality of patterning and productivity.
I have this question about phrase structure, and I need to figure out which statements hold true. Can you help me go through them?
Let's go through each statement one by one. What's the first one?
The first statement says, a cannot see command be under any condition.
That's definitely incorrect. C command is a specific syntactic relation between nodes in a tree structure, and there are conditions under which a can't see command be so. This statement doesn't hold true.
Got it. The next statement is, a C commands B, if and only if, the first branching node which dominates A also dominates B.
This one is close but not entirely accurate. The correct definition of C command is that node is C commands node B if and only if every branching node that dominates also dominates B, and it does not dominate B. It's a bit more specific than the statement given.
Right, I see the difference now. The third statement says, a C commands B, if and only if, both A and B belong to different branching nodes.
That's incorrect. C command isn't about belonging to different branching nodes, but rather about the hierarchical structure in which one node is higher and can see another node through the tree structure.
Okay, so that one's out too. What about a C commands B, if and only if, both belong to the same branching node?
This one is also incorrect. If both A and B belong to the same branching node, it's not necessarily true that a C commands B. The correct condition involves dominance by the same branching node without it dominating B directly.
This is getting clearer. The fifth statement is, a C commands B if and only if another node C commands B.
This one doesn't make sense in terms of C command either. C command is a direct relationship between two nodes, A and B, and doesn't involve a third node C commanding B to establish the relationship.
So, none of these individual statements seem right on their own. There is also an option A, B, and E only.
Based on what we've discussed, that's not correct since A and E are wrong. What other combined options are there?
Alright, fuck that now. I need your help with a question about the phonological parameters in sign language. Can we go through the options together?
Let's take a look at each option and see which ones are considered phonological parameters in sign language. What's the first option?
The first option is mouthing.
Mouthing isn't typically considered one of the primary phonological parameters of sign language. While it's important in some sign languages for adding emphasis or clarification, it's not a core building block like the others we'll discuss.
Got it. The next one is hand shape.
Hand shape definitely is a fundamental phonological parameter in sign language. It refers to the specific configuration of the fingers during the production of a sign.
That makes sense. What about location?
Location is another key phonological parameter. It refers to where the sign is made in relation to the signer's body or signing space. Different locations can change the meaning of a sign.
Okay, the next one is orientation.
Orientation is also a core phonological parameter. It describes the direction that the hand or hands are facing during the sign, such as palm up, palm down, etc.
And the last one listed individually is Stokoe.
Stokoe isn't a phonological parameter itself, but rather the last name of William Stokoe, a linguist who was crucial in developing the field of sign language phonology. He identified the main parameters like hand shape, location, and movement.
So, Stokoe is more about the person behind the research rather than a parameter. That makes sense. There is also a combined option that says B, C, and D only.
That would be hand shape, location, and orientation. These are indeed the core phonological parameters of sign language. There's also movement, which isn't listed here, but among the options given, this is the correct combination.
Those combinations include mouthing and Stokoe, which we've established aren't core phonological parameters. so they can be ruled out. I need your help with a question about the classifications of different languages. Can we go through the options together?
Let's examine each statement to see which pairs are correct. What's the first statement?
The first statement is Basque is an Afro-Asiatic language.
That's incorrect. Basque is actually a language isolate, which means it's not related to any other language family, let alone the Afro-Asiatic family.
Got it. The next statement is Hausa is an Afro-Asiatic language.
This one is correct. Hausa is a Chadic language, which is a branch of the Afro-Asiatic language family. It's spoken widely in Nigeria and Niger.
Okay, the third statement is Santhali is a Dravidian language.
That's incorrect. Santhali is actually part of the Munda language family, which is related to the Austro-Asiatic languages. It's spoken by the Santhal people in India.
What about Kuruk is a Dravidian language?
This one is correct. Kuruk is indeed a Dravidian language spoken by the Auran tribes in India.
And the last one is Kasi is an Afro-Asiatic language.
That's incorrect as well. Kasi belongs to the Austro-Asiatic language family, specifically the Mon Khmer branch, and is spoken in Meghalaya, India.
So, if we look at the combined options, A and B only isn't correct because A is wrong. C and D only isn't correct because C is wrong.
Right, and the option B and D only pairs Hausa, Afro-Asiatic, and Kuruk, Dravidian, which is correct. The other option D and E only isn't correct because E is wrong.
I need some help with a question about diphthongs and their classifications based on the off-glides. Can we go through the options together?
Let's take a look at the question and the options. What's the question?
The question is about what diphthongs with a back-off glide are called. The options are restrictive diphthongs, retroflexive diphthongs, resonant diphthongs, and retracting diphthongs.
Alright, let's break this down. We know that diphthongs with a central off-glide are called centering diphthongs, and those with a front off-glide are called fronting diphthongs. Now, we need to find the term for diphthongs with a back-off glide.
Let's start with the first option, restrictive diphthongs.
Restrictive diphthongs doesn't seem right. It doesn't fit the typical terminology used for describing diphthongs based on their off-glides.
Agreed. What about the second option, retroflexive diphthongs?
Retroflexive sounds like it would be related to retroflex sounds, which involve curling the tongue back. It's more about the tongue's position in the mouth rather than the glide of the diphthong. So, this one doesn't fit either.
That makes sense. The third option is resonant diphthongs.
Resonant diphthongs also don't fit the context here. Resonance in phonetics typically refers to the quality of the sound produced by the vocal tract rather than the direction of the glide.
So, that leaves us with the last option, retracting diphthongs.
Yes, retracting diphthongs makes sense. Retracting refers to the movement towards the back of the mouth, which aligns with a back-off glide. This is the correct term for diphthongs with a back-off glide.
Hey Bob, I have a question about the development of computer-assisted language teaching, CALT, software. Can we go through the options to see which components should be included?
What are the options?
The options are content development, graphical user interface development, working with suitable hosting and delivery platforms, and all of the above.
Let's go through each component. First, content development. This is essential for any CALT software because the content is what students will be learning. This includes lessons, exercises, multimedia resources, and assessments.
Definitely. Without well-developed content, the software wouldn't be effective for language teaching. What about graphical user interface development?
Graphical user interface, or graphical user interface, development is crucial as well. A user-friendly interface ensures that learners can navigate the software easily, access the content they need, and engage with interactive elements effectively. Poor graphical user interface can make the software frustrating to use.
That makes sense. And what about working with suitable hosting and delivery platforms?
This is also important. The software needs to be hosted on reliable platforms that can handle the necessary traffic and provide a seamless user experience. Delivery platforms should ensure that the software is accessible to users whenever they need it, and from various devices if possible.
So, it sounds like all these components are essential. The last option is all of the above.
Exactly. Developing effective Qt software requires attention to all these areas: content development, graphical user interface development, and suitable hosting and delivery platforms. Each plays a critical role in creating a comprehensive and user-friendly language learning tool.
So the correct answer is all of the above. Thanks for explaining.